Hi, this is Kevin Baumer, CML Deputy Director, and welcome to the last edition of the CML Statehouse Report for the 2018 legislative session. The General Assembly adjourned right at midnight on Wednesday, May 9th, and as we talked about before, we needed to let the dust settle a little bit and then bring you a little summary of what happened at the end. It was very eventful in the last few days of the session, particularly on a couple of my issues. Senate Bill 243, which was beer and liquor omnibus bill, for lack of a better term for it. There actually was compromise, I guess if you can call it compromise, or a lot of moving parts to the bill, but the bill did ultimately pass. A conference committee report passed both chambers, and that will be the bill that is enacted into law. This will be some modifications to Senate Bill 197 from 2016, despite folks saying they weren't really looking to change 197. It does modify parts of 197 and deals specifically with how fermented malt beverage licenses will be dealt with going forward. The bill will be effective upon signature, so we'll be looking for CML's immediate attention article in the upcoming newsletter about that. I'll have more to talk about, and then a more broad summary of the relevant parts of the bill. Because that bill passed, CML's initiated bill, House Bill 1441, which was narrowly dealing with 500-foot distance restrictions for new fermented malt beverage licenses. We expect the governor to sign it into law, but that bill had language in the enactment clause that says that it doesn't become effective if Senate Bill 243 does. So while it's a successful bill, we think helped drive some of the compromise on Senate Bill 243, it ultimately, even signed into law, will not become effective. And then finally, for our para-member municipalities, Senate Bill 200, which was para reform legislation, has a lot of components to it. That went right up to the very end. There, even though we thought we had everything all buttoned up, and we thought we did, we had assurances that we did, there is one small issue that remains for our local government employees that we'll have to deal with in the 2019 session. There was a employee contribution increase that's applicable to all the other divisions that was, we believe, inadvertently put onto the local government employees. It's not what anyone had intended, certainly not our chief proponent, which was House Majority Leader Casey Becker, who I want to personally thank for all of her efforts on this, as well as the other prime sponsors of the bill. It was quite a heavy lift, and turning para around is a big deal.
Hi, this is Megan Neller with the Colorado Municipal League. For my last Statehouse report this year, I am pleased to report that our municipal court grant funding program has officially passed the legislature and is on to the governor's desk. And the governor's office did support that legislation, so we do expect him to sign that. Another piece of legislation that also passed the legislature this week is Senate Bill 191. This bill had to do with increasing funding in the local government limited gaming impact fund. What it does is index that fund depending on how much the state pulls in on revenue as well. This could add up to close to $200,000 annually, and so we are very pleased to see that that legislation passed.
Hello, this is Morgan Cullen with the Colorado Municipal League, and this was a big last week of the session for 2018. Most notably, Senate Bill 1, the Transportation Infrastructure Bill, passed both the House and the Senate and is headed to the governor's desk. The bill does a number of things. The first thing is it provides $495 million this year to transportation infrastructure across the state. And then the following year, in 2019, there'll be an additional $150 million going to transportation projects. Both of those one-time funding amounts include 15% going to local governments, divided evenly between cities and counties. So for the first year, municipalities across the state will receive over $37 million in transportation infrastructure funding through the HUTF. And then the following year, out of that 150, they'll receive another additional $11.2 million. So that's a sizable amount of local government money for infrastructure. The second thing that the bill does is in 2019, it will send a referred measure to voters to consider a bonding proposal worth about $2.3 billion. The reason that it's done in 2019 is to give an opening or an opportunity in 2018 for a citizen-led initiative that would include or could include new revenue. So those are basically what the bill does. It is important to note as well that 15% of both the one-time money and any additional bonding would include 15% of that money would go to multimodal. And 85% of all the multimodal opportunities would go back to local governments as well. So that's, again, a sizable amount of money that local governments will be receiving for transportation going forward. We consider it a win here at CML. Also, Senate Bill 167 passed the House on third reading, and it's on its way to the governor's desk. This is known as the 811 Reform Bill, and it does two things. It requires Tier 1 membership of all facility owners across the state, and it also reforms the program by creating a 12-member safety commission that would have oversight and enforcement authority over the 811 program. So that was a very heavy lift. CML had been neutral on the bill, but if you look at the bill, our fingerprints are all over it. We worked on a number of important amendments to the bill to protect municipalities from any overreaching mandate.
Hello, this is Diane Criswell, CML Legislative Counsel. To kind of create some overarching topics, lots of little tweaks and clarifications in Fair Campaign Practices Act and mainly in elections. So please keep your eyes peeled in the laws enacted for that. Then in the last week of session, 1190, which extended the Main Street Revitalization Program for 10 years past, as did the clarification of gambling bill, which was House Bill 1234. Finally, I wanted to mention 1404, which would have made internal investigations files more easily open under the Criminal Justice Records Act, did die in the Senate.
So in summary, this was a very good legislative session for Colorado municipalities. In fact, we think we know how the governor will act on bills that are remaining out there, and by all accounts, he will sign support bills that we have. With that, we already know that 100% of our opposed bills were either killed or successfully amended so that we could drop our opposition. We aim for 100% every year, so to be able to achieve that, which is always our goal, is a great accomplishment we're very proud of. Also, with our support bills, 72% of those passed. We believe those that are still out there will be signed into law by the governor. That's also a percentage of which we're very proud. That is it for the 2018 session. Once the governor acts upon all the bills, he has until, I believe, June 8th to take final action, and some of those, like Senate Bill 243, the beer bill, we think he'll take most of that time. So that closes the book on the 2018 session. At some point, we'll start looking forward to 2019, but I want to make a couple of acknowledgments since this will be the last Statehouse report that we'll be doing until the next session. First of all, you can read about all these bills when we do our summary of laws enacted affecting Colorado municipalities. We expect that out within a week or so before the conference, mid-June. That's online at cml.org/publications. You'll be able to download this year's and, if you want to, prior year's versions as well. We're also in the middle of doing outreach meetings this week, and next week we'll be out around the state talking to our members about what happened during the General Assembly and answering their question, talking about other programs and training that CML is doing. But in terms of acknowledgments, I do want to acknowledge, because every year brings term limits, particularly at the end of a General Assembly, this being the second regular session of the 71st General Assembly. And so just a couple of names I want to acknowledge as they're either term limited or not coming back. There's a couple that are running for other offices. I'll mention them too. Representatives John Becker, Speaker of the House Crisanta Duran, Representative Millie Hamner, Representative Pete Lee, Representative Dan Pabon, Representative Paul Rosenthal, and Representative Dave Young are all term limited or not coming back. In addition, Representatives Faith Winter and Representative Dan Thurlow are running for Senate seats, so we may or may not see them back. And Representative Alex Winkler, Skinny is his nickname. Skinny was a vacancy appointment and will not be coming back. On the Senate side, Senators Irene Aguilar, President of the Senate Kevin Grantham, Assistant Minority Leader Lucia Guzman, Senators Andy Kerr, Kent Lambert, and Kevin Lundberg will all be leaving because of term limits. We've had relationships with all of them, great relationships with some of our former municipal elected officials, including the outgoing president, who was the first former municipal official to be elected president in 96 years. So that was a pretty cool deal. So thanks to them for all of their service and dedication to the General Assembly. As obviously Governor John Hickenlooper is also term limited, will not be back next session. Governor Hickenlooper once told our folks, once a mayor, always a mayor, and we thank him for his service and past service as a mayor. And finally, we do intend to do some issue-related videos over the interim. We've got to work out when we're going to do those and on what subjects, but we want to do some work in advance of the next legislative session so that the first you hear from us is not in January of 2019. Again, thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to CML's YouTube channel so you can watch these and any other videos that we post.